You don't expect to walk into a church and see something like that.
I can feel the pain that everybody's going through. So much hurt.
Our church was not comprised of members or parishioners. We were a very close family.
Think about the tragedy that those families are suffering. It's just inconceivable and impossible to put your head around.
You think you're safe in the house of the Lord, but the devil never rests.
Welcome to the Now Tampa Bay, everyone. I'm Ashley Glass.
And I'm Laura Harris. We start with that deadly church shooting in Texas. Lots of new information coming in this afternoon.
We're starting to get a better idea of why the shooter may have targeted the Baptist church. He killed 26 people, including young children. 20 others are hurt right now, and the whole community, as you can imagine, is in mourning.
Our Chris Welch is in Sutherland Springs for us. He joins us live with an update on the investigation and how the town is really trying to get through this all together. Again, he's in Texas right now.
There's no doubt about it. This is a small town of just a few hundred people, still in shock, still trying to comprehend what happened here yesterday. And in fact, investigators really trying to do the same thing. If you take a look behind us, you can see what appears to be sort of a mobile command post. You've got local, state, and federal officials. We've seen officials in FBI jackets milling around the back of the church here. This is still very much an active crime scene. We're also starting to learn more about a possible motive. We now know that the shooter's in-laws sometimes attended the church. He sent threatening text messages to his mother-in-law as recent as yesterday morning, and CNN is now reporting that one of the victims was the grandmother of the shooter's wife. Authorities now tell us the mass shooting started as a domestic situation and that it wasn't racially or religiously motivated.
At this time, we do not have a terrorism investigation open.
And authorities confirm it was caught on camera.
There is video recording from inside the church that has been secured.
We also know the killer had 3 guns, a rifle left at the church, and 2 handguns in the shooter's wrecked pickup. And for the first time today, we're hearing from the pastor of the church who was out of town, his daughter among the dead.
Whatever life brings to you, lean on the Lord rather than your own understanding. I don't understand, but I know my God does.
But as the search for clues and answers continues, we're learning more about the victims. For that, here's Annie Taylor.
We now know an 18-month-old child is among the 26 people killed in the church shooting. They range in age from 18 months to 77 years of age. The first to be identified, the pastor's 14-year-old daughter, Annabelle Pomeroy.
One thing that gives me a sliver of encouragement is the fact that Belle was surrounded yesterday by her church family that she loved fiercely.
Annabelle's parents were out of town Sunday. Filling in was Pastor Brian Holcomb, who was shot and killed alongside his wife, his son, and 1-year-old granddaughter. Holcomb's daughter-in-law, Crystal, was also among the dead. She was 5 months pregnant and a mother of 5. 3 of her children were also killed Sunday. One of the most recent victims to be identified is 16-year-old Haley Kruger.
I'm Corey Rangel. Here's what we're finding out about the heroes who tried to stop the gunman. Stephen Williford is a plumber who lives next to the church. After hearing gunshots, investigators say Stephen grabbed his rifle and shot the gunman before the shooter took off in his SUV. Stephen then flagged down Johnny Langendorf, a total stranger, and the two started chasing the shooter.
At one point, the gentleman riding with me said, "You may have to use your truck to get him off the road." And there was no hesitation. It was do everything necessary to make sure that this guy stopped.
Investigators say the chase ended when the gunman crashed his SUV and then shot and killed himself.
I'm Jace Larson. Here's what we know about the shooter. Devin Kelly showed off this long gun in a picture on Facebook. He was married to his second wife and living in New Braunfels, Texas. That's about 50 minutes from the church.
One thing that we seem to know is that Devin Kelly was a person with some mental challenges.
Those mental health issues started before Kelly entered the Air Force in 2010. He beat up his wife and his child and was then court-martialed 2 years later. He was ordered to a military jail for a year and then got divorced. The Air Force booted him out with a bad conduct discharge. That's something that wouldn't necessarily stop him from legally buying a gun. Had he been dishonorably discharged, well, then he couldn't buy, own, or even hold a gun.
The suspect did have a non-commissioned, unarmed private security license. Private security background checks, including fingerprints and criminal history checks, were checked, and he was cleared.
The reaction is already prompting debate about what can be done to stop these types of shootings. Here's the governor of Texas.
We all know that this is something that we must address as a nation, but also as a state.
He's not talking about guns. He's talking about mental health, a position in line with President Trump, who spoke from Japan.
I think that mental health is your problem here. This isn't a guns situation.
But Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut disagrees. The Sandy Hook Elementary shooting happened in his home state 5 years ago, using a similar weapon as the church shooter. 28 people died, including 20 first graders. In a statement, he tells fellow lawmakers to think about whether the political support for the gun industry is worth the blood that flows endlessly onto the floors of American churches, elementary schools, movie theaters, and city streets. I'm Mike Sachs for The Now.